Hello and welcome to Harrow Health Matters live Q&A. So Harrow Health Matters is a group of practitioners, knowledge experts and those who are interested in improving their health, all coming together to collaborate and to help with any issues that are related to health and lifestyle. So my name is Shabari and I'm a green beauty lifestyle consultant, and today I am interviewing Brian Jacobs, who is a registered clinical therapist as well as a hypnotherapy trainer. And so Brian and I know each other through the vegan scene. We first met at the International Vegetarian Union Congress in Dresden in 2008, so that was 12 years ago. And so Brian runs the London Vegans, London Vegan News and Events, and the Vegan London website. And I run the London Vegan Business Network, as well as running my own vegan skincare and cosmetics business. And so today Brian will be explaining a bit more about hypnotherapy and how hypnotherapy combined with NLP could help you resolve lifelong phobias. And if we have a bit of time left at the end, he'll be doing a demo a bit later on. And so Brian has been in practice for 20 years and has offices in Finchley Central as well as Harley Street. He sees clients to help them with behavioural change, for example, things like stopping them smoking, controlling weight, and to stop nail biting as well. And also emotional change as well, including reducing fears and anxiety, overcoming phobias and gaining confidence. He's been awarded the senior qualification in a hypnotherapy practice from the General Hypnotherapy Register, and certified master instructor of hypnotherapy by the National Guild of Hypnotherapists. So Brian was actually trained by none other than Paul McKenna in NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. So he'll talk a little bit about that a bit later on as well. And he uses a combination of techniques to help his clients improve their lives in the shortest possible time. So later on you'll have the opportunity to ask Brian some questions. So if you could post your questions in the comments section, and then he'll try and answer them towards the end of the Q&A. And any questions that he's not able to answer, he'll do after the live. And we'll also give our details as well, so that you can get in touch with either of us. So Brian, thank you, and welcome to Harrow Health Matters, and thank you for joining me. Thank you. So what exactly is hypnosis, and what do you do in your day job?
Well, very good question. Thank you for that. Hypnosis is a state of mind. Some people call it a trance, and I would say it's a means to an end. In other words, the trance state has been around for many thousands of years, and way back in the times of Egyptian sleep temples, where taking somebody or putting somebody into a trance state was beneficial for healing. But more recently, we're going into now the 1700s and 1800s, it was being used for therapy purposes. And combining that state of having somebody in a very relaxed state where they're very focused on something, they're more relaxed, and while they're in that state, it could be that we're giving them some suggestions or using some imagery techniques or some other techniques that have come from psychotherapy. So that's the hypnosis part of it. And in terms of my day job, as you mentioned, I've got 2 offices. At the moment, I'm seeing clients online, and hopefully seeing clients back in the office once lockdown has finished in 2 or 3 weeks' time. And primarily clients come for, as you said, behavioral change. That tends to be smoking cessation, weight control, nail biting, hair pulling. I've got someone coming for. Sometimes people come for what I call addictions, but they're more behavioral in terms of someone who's on cocaine or smoking weed. Um, then there's the emotional side of things, which is I see people for anxiety, reducing anxiety, overcoming phobias and fears, and gaining confidence.
Okay, thank you. So, how did you get into hypnotherapy in the first place?
Well, you mentioned Paul McKenna. This is 21 years ago now.
Wow.
We went to a talk he was giving about NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, which is about the way that we program our minds, the way we communicate with ourselves and with others. And it was that initial talk that led me and my partner to go on an NLP training course. And from that, it led to me deciding to train to become a hypnotherapist. So it's 20 years last month that I've been in practice.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Yes.
Time
So,
flies.
yes, it certainly does. So you've had other professions before, so you were an accountant before,
No.
yeah, which is very, very different, to being a hypnotherapist. So I guess, were you at the time, wanting to make a career change?
Yeah, well, it was, as an accountant, I was working primarily with personal tax and helping people as a tax manager. There were times when it was a little stressful,
Mm,
and particularly within the office environment. Although I enjoy going there and the people that work there, so it would go a little bit stressful at times. And there's a question about where was I going in terms of my future. And as I said, this course came up, and I thought, let's give it a go. And I went then part-time hypnotherapist, part-time tax advisor, and then moved to full-time hypnotherapist. So that's been for the last, I said, 20 years. And since 2006, I've also been training others to become hypnotherapists.
fantastic. And how often do you do that? Do you, actually
Training
train
courses,
them?
yeah, they generally they're 3 times a year. I think this year probably only 2 courses, just because of what's happening with COVID.
Mm,
But the next course will be starting in October, and that will be in North London. As it's basically it's attending the training. It's I say hands-on. It's face to face with me, and it consists of 3 modules. You've got a little banner at the back there. You'll see the
oh, yeah.
website. Okay.
Fantastic. And you mentioned that you help people break habits.
Yeah.
So can you explain that a little bit more as well?
Yes, of course. Um, from very early on in our lives, we develop habits either by imitating other people or people telling us what to do for the very, what I call the early habits, so like brushing our teeth, for example.
Mm,
And then later on in life, we start developing habits, but they always have a positive intention, if you like, when they start. Even for something like smoking, there's always a reason why. Even nail biting. I was speaking to a lady in my practice, and she says, well, when she was younger, she saw her sister biting her nails, and that's how she started doing it.
mm,
And you will be familiar, I think, with conditioning. I know I don't particularly like the work that Pavlov did because it was working on dogs. But
mm,
what you learn from that and from other what I call experiments and research is that people are conditioned to do a certain thing. People
mm,
are influenced to do things. And people have got themselves into behaviors or habits which initially, as I said, can be very beneficial. I mean, when a person goes out socially and has a drink, they might think, that's okay. The problem is when they are drinking too much, then
mm,
it becomes a problem. Or when they are a smoker and they realize that they're coughing and they're having chest problems,
mm,
or when they've seen somebody else die of smoking, then it becomes a problem, and that's when they want help to help deal with that problem. But every behavior when it starts, there is always a positive aspect of it. It's only later on when the person realizes that I don't want to be doing that. And so what hypnotherapy does is working at the subconscious level. Um, we all can be influenced to some extent or another, every single one of us. The fact that you are watching this video, you've been influenced to watch this video. What hypnotherapy is doing is helping change the programming in the subconscious mind to help influence you to do something different, to do something in a different way, perhaps, and break those old habits. And when a person's in hypnosis, they are more suggestible. And they also have better use of imagination, better recall of past events. But it's that hypnotic state that makes it more effective than just talking in the conscious state.
I see. Yeah, so thank you. And also, what about phobias? You know, you mentioned that
Yeah.
you help people with phobias as well. You know, because
Well,
a lot of people are scared of spiders, and you know that kind of thing. So you know, I guess you have people coming to you to help them with their phobias.
yeah. Uh, a phobia is defined as an irrational fear. And how do you define what's irrational? I mean, is it irrational that a person should be fearful about going on a plane
Mm,
or encountering a spider? And I
mm,
would say, well, if the majority of people do not have that fear, then the fear is irrational.
mm,
And again, there's always a reason why it starts. Often it's just, I mean, I give an example. For someone with a fear of spiders, uh,
mm,
if we follow it back, often the case was the parent had a fear of spiders and then the child learned the fear. Because they say we're only born with two possible fears. One of them is a fear of sudden loud noises, and the
mm.
other is a fear of falling. Everything else is a learned behavior.
Oh right, wow, I
So,
didn't know
so
that.
yeah, so we're not inherently. It's not like we inherit the fear of spiders or inherit the fear of dogs or whatever the person has an issue with.
Mm,
So
mm,
what I do within the hypnotic process, I said it's using generally a combination of traditional hypnoanalysis, which is about finding out what the cause was, where appropriate. It's using some imagery and suggestions, and then it's using NLP techniques, of which there are a number of different techniques for working with phobias. And often one session could be enough. I remember not that long ago, or I'm not this, I think it was last year, there was a lady came to see me who had a fear of going on a hot air balloon. But she actually booked a holiday in Jordan where she would actually be going on the hot air balloon. So she was going to challenge herself. But
mm,
having booked it, then she became very fearful about the process. So we did a session, it was just one session, and we knocked out that fear. And then she very kindly then sent me a picture of herself up on the hot air balloon when she was on holiday. And so there's all sorts of fears that I've been working with. And I said, what tends to happen with people where they have a phobia is they avoid. In other words, someone with a fear of spiders, what they will do is they will avoid going anywhere where there's a spider. If there's a
mm.
spider in the bath, they'll have someone else come and remove the spider.
Yes.
And it's not the ideal situation, but for many people, they say, well, that's their way of life, and it's not much of an issue.
Mm,
The problem is when somebody says, well, I'm going on holiday to Australia, there's going to be spiders there, and I fear
mm,
about going on holiday. Similarly, about going on a plane, or somebody got fear of driving. So it's when that fear gets to that level where it's
mm.
affecting that person's life, then they will generally get in touch and say, you know, I need some help.
I see. And you know, typically, how many sessions does your clients need? I know you mentioned, you know, an example about that
Yeah.
lady just needing one session. Typically, how many sessions would they actually need? You know, for example, to break a habit
Yeah,
or
yeah. It's a
whatever.
good question. We're all different, and you know, some people will respond a lot better than other people. And I said it can literally just be one session for breaking a habit or for breaking a phobia, overcoming a fear or phobia.
Mm,
And if the person responds well, I've worked with a number of people, and it's happened just like that, as quickly as that. There's one on my website where someone had a fear of snakes. Occasionally, it can take a little bit longer than that. I mean, there's one guy who had he had a fear of snakes, even to the point where the word snake was problematic. So
oh,
was taking a few more sessions. But I said for common, simple phobias, I would call them, one session could be enough.
I see. And what about, like, say, for example, fear of Friday the 13th, or, the fear of the number 13, because that's quite a
I haven't had anybody come to see me for that yet, but that is possible. I mean, again, I mean, they can't obviously avoid it, but it's a question of how bad does the fear become that it's affecting their life. That's really for them, for the client, is it's that, you know what, I want to go on holiday, I can't do this. Or my friend, I want to go and visit my sister. My sister's got dogs. I have a fear of dogs. Or another one, for example, there's a person who came to see me who had a fear of birds, particularly pigeons. They wanted to go in the park with their very young daughter, but they were fearful because of the fear of the pigeons. So we helped them, and in that particular case, I remember what we did was help them understand where it came from, and the cause actually was when that client was a young child. Their parent had an aviary, and the child got locked in the aviary with the birds. So that's how they came to have the fear. But it's different for everybody. Not everybody will recall or remember why they have it. Sometimes it is literally just because the parent had it, and the parent who had it, let's supposing the parent is fearful of mice, and the mother starts jumping on a chair when there's a mouse. The child, as a form of protection, thinks, oh God, mice, they must be dangerous in some way, and then the child then develops the fear.
All right. So, when, I guess you don't do things like past life or regression. It would be regressing people back into that time when they sort of got that particular fear. So you don't do past life regressions. Just going back in. You would just hypnotize people to go back in time to pinpoint the exact point of when they develop that fear.
Yeah, generally speaking, I'll say the answer is yes for most clients. Once in a while, I will have a client that goes into a past life, and then we'll deal with the past life. But for the majority of clients, it's what's happened in this life rather than the past life. So, I mean, I know there are people who do specialize in past life regression, but I said it only is when a client actually goes there rather than me taking them there. And it's not always that a client needs to go into even a past part of their life to resolve the issues. Just to say, for those people who have got a fear, I do not confront them with that. In other words, if they've got a fear of spiders, I'm not going to take out the spider and get them to actually feel that fear at that moment. Okay, it's the power of the imagination that makes the change. It's what goes on in their mind that's created that fear, and it's what goes on in their mind that can break that fear.
Okay, thank you. And is there, when a client comes to see you, usually, how long is the session? Would it be an hour? Would it be 2 hours? Or I guess it sort of probably varies on what the client's issues are.
Yeah, it can vary. I generally say to my clients 60 to 90 minutes. More likely than not, it will be near the 90-minute mark, because of the way that I work and the techniques I use. Every hypnotherapist is different. We all use some form of hypnosis within the session, but even with that, there are different inductions that can be used, and there are different procedures. But the way that I work, my client sessions are generally up to 90 minutes.
Okay, thank you. And can anyone be hypnotized, or is it only a certain category of people? And also, what about children? Can they be hypnotized?
It's an excellent question. Everybody can be hypnotized provided they want to be, and that's an important part of this. So in terms of does one need to have a special ability to hypnotize? No. However, if a person, for very, very young children, the answer is no, because they're not capable of following instructions. Once the child gets to sort of, particularly sort of, 10-year-old and onwards, maybe even a little bit younger, yet they can make really, really good hypnotic subjects. I don't work with young children, by the way. For me, the child needs to be 16 or over. And the reason being is that for young children, you need to have the parent in the room. And there's sometimes the issue of that the child presents is because of the parent and not because of the child. But there are hypnotherapists who work with children. You need to be able to follow instructions and use your imagination. So a person who is very, I mean, if you've got someone who has got paranoia, schizophrenia, there may be difficulty in gaining rapport with that person. An ideal client is somebody who obviously wants to be hypnotized. They're open to the process. They are reasonably, even to be intelligent enough to be able to follow instructions and use imagination. Would it be, I don't know if we've got time, but just a couple of little examples just on how good your imagination can be, which is often something I would use with clients just before we do hypnosis. Would it be okay to do that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so for those watching, and maybe if you want to do it yourself, what I like to do is just to squeeze your hands together
Like this.
very tightly and lift up your 2 forefingers and then just move them apart about an inch or half an inch and focus on the gap, and imagine in each of those fingers there is a magnet, and each magnet is pulling the other magnet towards it. Feel those fingers just pulling together closer and closer, and in a moment they'll just come and they'll touch. And you should find that that will happen just by the power of your mind. Okay, and this hands can drop now. And then similarly, if you put your hands out about 6 inches apart, and what's going to happen this time, likewise, imagining a magnet in each hand, and then the hands again will come together. And you can do this with eyes open or eyes closed. With the clients, I often get them to close their eyes to do this. But just using the power of mind and imagination, just using that power that you have to imagine a magnet in each hand, and just feel the hands moving closer and closer and closer, closer and closer. And in the moment, I said, they'll come and they'll touch, and then you can just drop the hands down. So these are just tests of imagination and checking that person can follow instructions. I mean, it's very basic. It's not hypnosis itself, but it will lead into us doing a formal hypnotic induction.
So
by the way, that will work for most people.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes they need a little bit more time than what we just had there. But it will work for most people. And I said all it is showing that a person can use their imagination and follow instructions.
So has there been any examples of when you've had a client come to you, and I don't know if you do this test beforehand, but has there been any sort of examples where you've tried to hypnotize them and you just weren't able to?
I don't recall anything that's happened, anything recently. Every client that I have, first of all, they've chosen to come to me. This is an important fact. I don't force somebody to be hypnotized. They are willing participants. They come to see me in my office generally, or over the internet, and therefore they're saying, you know what, I want to go with this, because fighting it doesn't benefit them. That makes sense. In other words, you can say, well, I'm going to resist, but then that's not why they've come to see me. And I said, this is just proving to them. I mean, there's other tests we can do as well, just to show that they can use their imagination, because a lot of the work that we do with clients is more than just putting them in hypnosis and getting them and giving suggestions. It's about using the power of their mind to effect change. Because if you want to be, whether it's a non-smoker, whether it's a slimmer, whether you want to be free of drugs, when you want to be having nice, attractive nails, it's important that you're going to be able to imagine yourself how you want to be. And for the person with a phobia, that they can imagine themselves, and this is what we lead to within the session, that they can imagine themselves, whether it's seeing a spider or getting on an aeroplane or touching a dog or whatever it may be, without having any fearful feelings.
Okay, thank you. And I guess they would have to be in a relaxed state. So, I get
That's right.
that, anybody who isn't relaxed or is stressed, it's a lot more difficult to be able to hypnotize them.
Not necessarily, because the procedures will take them into a state where they will be relaxed.
I
But I
see.
know once in a while I'll get someone say, oh, but I can't relax. There are techniques that we can use to get someone in hypnosis that don't involve relaxation. But at the end of the session, or towards the end of the session, they will be very relaxed. Because everybody can realize, if you're able to go to sleep, you can relax.
Yeah.
Although hypnosis isn't sleep, I should say. You're not out of it. You are fully aware of what's happening throughout the whole process.
Okay, thank you. And you know, what about the different types of hypnotherapy? You know, for example, cognitive, clinical. You know, what are they? What are the differences between each type?
Well, I'll say a clinical hypnotherapy is really the same as hypnotherapy. It's a hypnotherapist who's working with, for example, anxiety issues or sort of things that will be dealt with in the clinic. In terms of the types of hypnotherapy, I said we are using hypnosis and then we're using techniques. And there are some hypnotherapists that will be using cognitive behavioral therapy, but under hypnosis. For example, regression hypnotherapy or hypnoanalysis is a procedure I'd be using. I use some NLP techniques. Where appropriate, it is behavioral therapy. So I use an eclectic mix of different techniques and therapies within the session, and even to some extent doing something which isn't hypnosis, which is a tapping technique, which is tapping on acupressure points.
EFT, emotion freedom
Well,
technique.
it's similar. It's something similar to it's toward thought field therapy, but it's very similar to EFT. Yeah.
I see. And you also do NLP as well. Do you do that combined with your hypnotherapy, or do you offer NLP as a separate thing to clients?
No, the NLP techniques are part of the session. In other words, I would hypnotize somebody. So let's take an example. For somebody with it could be a behavioral change. Let's supposing they're wanting to stop biting their nails or stop smoking or whatever it may be. Once they're in hypnosis, one little part of what we do is get them to imagine them being in situations when they are not smoking, for example, or for a nail biter, if they're feeling anxious but can't bite their nails, and to see whether there's any discomfort there. And what we're doing is a technique called collapsing anchors, which is about knocking out those negative feelings. Or it could be using, again, this anchoring, which is coming from NLP, associating a really positive feeling with just touching the thumb and finger like this. And so moving forward, imagine themselves in situations where in the past they used to smoke, but now they're not smoking, and noticing how good they feel as they squeeze the thumb and finger. So this is just one NLP technique. There's other things we call reframing, and there are many other. I mean, NLP is much bigger than this, but I use some, and it's just a small part of NLP. But usually it's when the client is in the hypnotic state rather than the waking state.
I see. Okay, thank you. So I'll now go to some of the questions from our viewers. So let's have a look. Right. Yeah, so Sarah has asked, and I asked this question earlier as well, how many sessions does a person realistically have to have for results?
I said it could be as few as one. I'm trying to think. I have maybe 2 clients over sometime that I've seen over a long period of time, and they come for different issues. Usually I say, if someone says, I've got anxiety, how many sessions? I would say, well, just allow maybe 3 or 4 sessions. I know there are some hypnotherapists that will work differently to me, and they may have they may have over a longer period of time, more sessions, but shorter sessions. And we're all different. And I can only say what I do. I aim to give my client an estimate of how many sessions will be involved. For stopping smoking, we do a program which is 1 session, and then I follow up the client afterwards. If they need any more help, they can come. We do some extra sessions if need be. But rather than book somebody in for like 8, 10, 20, whatever sessions, I try and reduce it to what the minimum number is. And I said, every now and again, it's, one session could be enough, and then a phone call or a text afterwards just to check that everything's going okay.
Okay, thank you. And so Rocky has asked, do you help in hypnobirthing as well?
The answer to that one is very simply no. um, there are specialists in hypnobirthing. By the way, and this is interesting because when I first heard of the term hypnobirthing, I thought that means I have to be there at the birth, and that's not the case, by the way. If you're about to have a child, and do seek out a hypnobirthing practitioner. There are lots of them about there. You go to classes and you learn how to. It is about how to numb parts of the body, how to reduce pain, and you do it on yourself. But yeah, no, it's not my speciality at all. I'm not a practitioner of that.
Okay, thank you. And Sarah has also asked, do you believe in the saying, fear the fear, feel the fear and do it anyway? Does that help?
Not really. If you're fearful about doing something, the chances are you might not do it. It's to do with pain and pleasure. We move away from pain and we move towards pleasure. If somebody is fearful of doing something, the answer is they may not do it. And that's when they will go and generally seek some help. Now, I appreciate you might say, well, okay, if you do it, you might realize it's not as bad as you thought it was going to be. And that could be the case. A little bit of fear could be very useful. And I'd not say fear, but if we tie it with stress, so we say, well, is stress good? A little bit of stress can be motivating. You hear about people, actors particularly, about to go on stage, and they've got a little bit of the nerves there, but that helps them become more alert, a bit more focused. So it can be beneficial. But in terms of, if you've got a fear of spiders and someone says, oh, go and remove that spider, the chances are you'll say, no, I'm not going to do that, and you'll pull away and you retreat. So not everybody can actually go and feel the fear and do it. It depends on the individual. Nice question.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. And so Rocky has also asked, I have heard of someone who has a fear of the sound of a balloon burst. Would hypnosis work for her?
The answer is potentially yes. It's not something, again, not one I've worked with, but basically they're using, if the sound is, again, I said sudden loud noise, but it's irrational. And something may have happened way back when that's caused that, I don't know. But more than happy to work with that person and to help to desensitize, because that's with all the different techniques in hypnosis for working with phobias, it's all about desensitizing, reducing that fear to hopefully the point where there's no fear there.
Okay, thank you. And so Shaka mentioned I first read that book by Susan Jeffers in 1994.
Okay.
Really helpful at the time. This is the Feel the Fear book. I haven't heard of the book. So, right. So Vasha has asked, currently many of us are developing fears of going out and risking sort of contracting the coronavirus. Can you suggest anything to help prevent it becoming an irrational fear?
The fear of going out. I would say that obviously this is an interesting situation because it's happening now. You need to obviously make your own decision as to whether you will go out or not. That's the first thing, and that's based on what government guidance and your own thoughts on that. The question is, when you're going out and about, you need to take precautions. In terms of where does hypnosis come in, if it does come in relation to this, I've had a couple of clients who have had anxiety related to COVID-19 and their fears. And it's, there's some extra challenges there just because they're in the middle of that at the moment. And this isn't an irrational fear to some extent because they may have underlying health conditions. So they have that fear is there to protect them. Any fear is there to protect. But sometimes a fear the mind is overprotecting. If that makes sense. So in terms of going out and just, I say, you can use your mind and imagination to imagine yourself in situations and being safe. To help yourself, if there is some fear there, one thing I always recommend for people with stress is to practice deep diaphragmatic breathing. Self-hypnosis is good, where you can just, I mean, there are lots of free things that are available on the internet, on YouTube, etc., and they're all very relaxing, but particularly using your mind and imagining how you would want to be. So whether that's for healing, whether that's imagining yourself going out and walking out in the street and there's other people there, and that will also, because if you're less stressed, you're also strengthening your immune system. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. So, can you do self hypnosis on yourself?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are various forms of self-hypnosis. There's the form of self-hypnosis where you just buy a recording or download something, and basically it's just you are in the room just with a recording there, and then you close your eyes and you listen to a voice, which you can download from the internet, etc. One step on from that is you record your own voice, so you can get hypnosis scripts and you can record your own voice giving yourself suggestions, and then you can listen to them on a regular basis. A third way of doing this is literally just a few deep breaths, closing your eyes, and then just saying to yourself over and over an affirmation. So it could be, I mean, a very basic one, which has been around for maybe 100 years, is every day in every way I'm getting better and better. And just saying it over and imagining yourself getting better in whichever way you want to be improving in your life. So there are various forms of self-hypnosis. They're all very beneficial, but they're all very different. Some are very similar, you might think, to meditation. And meditation is about relaxing, clearing the mind. The advantage of doing hypnosis is you're putting in some positive suggestions and imagery as well.
Let's have a look at any other questions. Yes, so somebody has asked, will there be a recording of this interview? You mentioned that it is going to be, well, it will be available.
It's recorded in this video is going to be up on Harrow Health Matters. Beyond this session now. So in other words, I know we're watching it live, but it's going to be, there is a recording. My understanding is the recording stays up there on the website.
Yeah, that's right. And also you mentioned that that you have a YouTube channel as well, yeah. and it will also be available on there as well.
That's right. Yes.
Thank you for that question, Paul. Yeah. So, does anyone else have any other questions at all that you'd like Brian to answer? So I'll just maybe wait a few seconds to see if there are any other questions. Otherwise, yeah, perhaps if you want to just kind of wrap up and just maybe talk about something that people can perhaps take away with.
Well, I said, hypnosis is a very powerful tool. It's incredibly safe. You cannot get stuck in hypnosis. You can't be made to do anything you don't want to do. You have control when you're in the session. You have control. And if at any moment, when I'm seeing a client, if at any moment they thought, you know what, I don't like this, I'm going to get up, they can get up. They can move their hands, they can scratch themselves if they wanted to. And they're not stuck in a state, and they have an awareness of what's happening. At the end of the session, they will have remembered what's happened. So it's a very useful tool, whether you're doing it for self-hypnosis, for your own benefit, whether you go and see a hypnotherapist. Just, I say, consider it as a possibility. In how it may help you, because not only for breaking habits that people have got the habits that they want, or overcoming phobias, but even just for becoming more confident in certain areas of your life. Or I don't know, I see people, for example, if they're giving a speech somewhere, they want more confidence for public speaking, and just feeling better within themselves. What we call it ego strengthening. So yeah, there's a lot. You've got the details of the training courses are on behind me. For the therapy, it's the slightly modification. The website is hypnoticsolutions.co.uk. It's on the screen. And I said, all being well, I'll be seeing clients in the office in a couple of weeks' time, but I'm still available to see clients online as well. So yeah, please do get in touch if you have any questions. It's Brian, B-R-I-A-N, at hypnoticsolutions.co.uk.
Thank you. And just one final question. When you're doing hypnosis through Zoom, are you able to get your clients into a hypnotic state? Are you able to?
Oh yeah, the answer is yes, absolutely. I mean, I've been doing that for the last, month or two. And I just put a testimonial up on my website from yesterday with working with a person purely over Zoom who has anxiety. So the answer is yeah, as long as they can sit somewhere comfortable, where they're relaxed, where they won't have any distractions, and that they've got a good internet connection and a camera, that's all. And they can hear me, of course. Okay.
Great, thank you very much. So, so thank you to everyone who joined us today, and thank you so much to Brian, our guest. And so please do join us again at the same time next week. We are going to be doing our alternate week Harrow Health Matters forum, and which will be on Zoom. So the details of that will be put up on Harrow Health Matters, and you're welcome to come along. Any questions that you have that are health related, do please come along. So thank you very much, and I'll say good night. Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye.